Hey guys, FilthyRobot here, bringing another guides, tips, and tricks video. This time we're talking about Dawn of War 3. So this particular video is geared towards new players. It's one of two videos that I would really suggest new players watch before starting the game. And in this particular video, we're going to talk about the pre-launch decisions you make as a new player. Alright, first up, campaign versus multiplayer. Seems like a weird thing to be starting a video on, but I think there's an important distinction here. The campaign is not going to teach you to play against human players, and it's not going to do a very good job of getting you prepared to face human players. What the campaign does for you, and there is some value in it, is it gives you lore, it gives you storyline, both of which are cool as part of why you purchase the game and part of why you enjoy the Warhammer 40k universe. And it also gives you skulls. Skulls are an in-game currency that you use to unlock additional heroes and additional army doctrines for the game. So you are going to want a pretty decent source of skulls, particularly if you want to play multiple factions, since you have to unlock heroes and doctrines specific to each faction. And when you start the game, you only have 500 skulls, and you'll find yourself spending those very, very quickly. So if you ever run low on skulls or find yourself wanting to do things but you can't because you don't have enough skulls, go play the campaign. The missions are fairly quick, and they give you an absolute ton of skulls on most of your missions. So it's a very quick way to accumulate skulls. But if you want to really experience what I consider the best parts of Dawn of War 3, I strongly recommend the multiplayer. The multiplayer experience is where you're going to be playing against other human beings. I find this is true for at least myself and almost always in art and real-time strategies and RTSs, which is that they really shine in multiplayer, where you get to compete against a smart, well, sometimes smart, another human being who adapts to you, adapts to your play style, and has equal resources. So the difficulty isn't artificial, the difficulty is based on competing with the same starting positions for the same goals. Okay, so first decision, multiplayer versus single player. I strongly recommend multiplayer. Second decision, what faction do you want to play? Starting the game, there are three factions: Orcs, Eldar, and Space Marines. The balance in 1v1 is different than the balance in 2v2 or 3v3. There's certainly some things that are common across all of them, but in 1v1, really, Space Marines and Eldar dominate 1v1, where Orcs are fairly weaker, a little bit weaker in 1v1. In 2v2 and 3v3, especially as you switch closer to the 3v3 end of that spectrum, I believe Eldar and Orcs are more powerful than Space Marines, and they're certainly more interesting to play. So as a new player, I strongly recommend Orcs or Eldar, and if you're wanting to play 1v1, 2v2, and 3v3, probably Eldar is your best bet. If you're wanting to play 2v2 or 3v3 primarily, Orcs or Eldar are both fine. We're going to take it from the Orc perspective, because Orcs are currently my favorite faction. They seem to have the most diverse set of units, the most diverse set of strategies you can run. I really like the Orc balance for this faction. Okay, so choose a faction. I think right now my win rate with Orcs are like 20 or 30% better than my win rate with Space Marines, but my win rate with Space Marines are still above 50%, so I mean, it's really up to you. You certainly could take a weaker faction to try to play it. My biggest issue with Space Marines right now is they're very one-dimensional. You're forced to do the same basic strategy over and over and over again to have a chance of being competitive, and I don't like that. I spend a lot of time trying to make other strategies working and being disappointed with how bad tactical Marines are, for example. But anyways, pick your faction. We talked a little bit about skulls already. Let's talk about what you spend your skulls on. Starting player, you have 500 skulls, I believe, and you're going to be spending them on doctrines. Doctrines all start not unlocked. They cost 50 skulls to unlock, and you're going to be spending them on heroes. And heroes cost between 200 and 300 skulls. You start with 3 heroes unlocked, these 3 I believe, and then you have 6 heroes that are not unlocked that cost between 200 and 300 skulls each. Most of the heroes aren't necessary. There are definitely better heroes in this game. Some of the faction heroes are very limited in what they do and not very powerful, so you don't have to purchase all of the factions and the same, or all of the heroes rather, and you don't have to purchase all of the doctrines. And if you're focusing on one faction to begin with, your skull cost is going to be a lot less than if you're playing all 3 factions, because then you only have to purchase heroes and doctrines for that single faction. Either way, there's plenty of skulls in the campaign, so if you want to play all the factions, get all the heroes and all the doctrines, just go play the campaign. You'll have plenty of skulls to do that with. But as a starting player and you have your first 500 points, how do you spend them? I would recommend purchasing 1 hero and 3 doctrines and going from there. All right, as Orc. Let's talk about the hero selection first. You'll You'll notice that each hero, including the ones that you haven't seen down that are down here in unpurchased, which for me are all up here because I have them all purchased, have a purple diamond in the top right-hand corner. This is an elite point cost. Elite points are a third resource. Dawn of War has the two primary resources that pretty much all real-time strategies has. It has, it has your basic money resource. It has your advanced unit cost resource. In this case, in Dawn of War, it's requisition and power. And then it has a third resource called elite points. Elite points accrue over time. You can spend elite points by using your special abilities of your race, which generally are some sort of orbital bombardment, or you can purchase heroes with elite points. You are allowed 3 heroes each game you play. You choose which 3 you have available to deploy before you start the game. You do have a chance to change those deployments after you see what your opponent, the faction of your opponent. So if I just hit search right now, when I encountered my opponent, I would have a minute after encountering my opponent to make changes to my doctrines and to my heroes before the game started. But once the game starts, you're locked for the 3 heroes you picked. All right. Cheaper elite points means the hero is available earlier. Heroes are generally pretty strong. They are often worth multiple squads of non-hero units in terms of strength, and they often can do things that non-hero units can't do, special abilities, area of effects, stuff like this. So heroes are extremely powerful. With that said, the earlier you deploy your first hero, the sooner you get that big power spike. When you get a big power spike, you're suddenly able to fight enemies you wouldn't be able to fight otherwise, or defend against enemies you wouldn't be able to defend against otherwise. So, especially in 1v1s, but also in 2v2s and 3v3s, I recommend that you front load your hero lineup. Don't take a 9 point, another 9 point, and a 7 point, because by the time your 7 point is deployed, by the time that portion of the game rolls around where you have enough elite points to deploy your 7 point, you're probably going to be at a big disadvantage because your opponent's already deployed a 2 and a 4 point hero before you even get to your 7 point hero and has been pushing you around and kicking the crap out of you with his early heroes. So I strongly recommend front loading your heroes. Load towards low-end, low-cost heroes so you can get them out sooner, so you can have battlefield advantage to be able to do what you want to do in the game. With that said, what is an early game hero? What is a low-cost hero? 2 is the cheapest you'll find for any heroes. 2 and 3 are generally early game heroes. You can often hold out long enough against a 2-cost hero to get your 3-point hero out, although you're a little bit of a disadvantage. Often a 4-point hero becomes a little bit too late for that. So in this lineup here, the one that I'm modeling here, I think these are your starting heroes as Orc. You have a 2-point hero right off the bat. You have a 4-point hero, a few minutes later, and then much later in the game, I have a 9-point hero to deploy. A load up like that is generally pretty fine. I don't think these are the 3 strongest Orc picks. If I had to choose what are the 3 strongest Orc picks that I run almost every scenario, they would probably be the Weird Boy is probably the absolute strongest Orc hero. I like Mega Knobs, and I often run either Storm Boys or something else as well. So something like this is generally probably my lineup, possibly switching out Mega Knobs for like Beauty, for example. But anyways, that's what you're picking your heroes on. You're picking them based on the elite point cost and the impact they have when they're deployed. You'll notice that the heroes have what looks like a little doctrine next to them. Each hero has 2 doctrines that he brings to the field personally. The first of those is available at level 1. The second is available at level 3. When your hero levels to level 8, that doctrine is available as one of these doctrines, whereas before it's not. What you'll find when you don't have them at level 8 is they'll be grayed out like this. And it'll say when reaching level 8, the doctrine is unlocked to be equipped as an army doctrine. So what that allows you to do is later on, when your heroes are a little bit higher level, you can run more hero-style doctrines if you want and let your army do different unique things. In general, this isn't a big deal for power spikes. There are a few exceptions, and one of the most notable exceptions is Weird Boys. You would really like to have Storm Boys command available as soon as possible. Suicide Bomb is an extremely, extremely powerful ability that is crucial to Orc early game in large part, and you'll find yourself struggling a little bit without it, so I recommend leveling Storm Boys to 3 as soon as possible. I will do a quick guide at some point on how to very rapidly level your heroes, but the Storm Boys are a pretty early hero in the campaign, so if you play a couple Orc missions in the campaign, you will find that you get your Storm Boys to level 3 very, very quickly, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal, especially since you're going to want a 2-point hero anyways. Okay, so we talked about hero choices. We talked about the costs of heroes. We talked about doctrines and doctrine choices. Let's talk about the type of game you're going to be choosing. Oh, actually, one more thing on heroes while we're still here, which is that if you ever want to know what a hero does, if you're trying to make a decision, well, which is the next hero I want to purchase? You know, Filthy said Zap Noggin's good, but didn't really say anything past that. What's the next hero I want to purchase after Zap Noggin? Well, you can always go to a hero, click on info to do this, and you click on and left click on any of the in-game abilities they say, and it will show you what that ability does. So you read the description, then watch the little tiny in-game video about what it does, and between those you get a pretty decent sense of what it does. Just FYI, I found that extremely helpful when I was learning the game, so that's quite a good thing. Okay, so the last decision you need to make before you start the game is what are we going to do? What type of match are we going to play? The game Relic has produced a couple posts. I guess I could find you citations for these if you like at some point. Maybe I'll put them in the channel, the video description, or maybe you'll just have to come to my Twitch channel where I have the stuff bookmarked there. But basically, they've said that this game is designed to be a 3v3 game first, a 2v2 and a 1v1 game second. And to be fair, that's been my experience with the game. I have the most fun in 3v3. The fights are the largest scale. You almost always get through the various phases of the game. You almost always get to see all the various faction vehicles, faction super weapons, faction everything comes out in the 3v3s. The 3v3s have been an extremely enjoyable part of this. I also like 2v2s, although sometimes 2v2s feel a lot like two simultaneous 1v1s depending on the map. And 1v1s I haven't enjoyed very much, and the balance is radically different in a 1v1 than it is in a 2v2 or 3v3. In 1v1s, Eldar are very dominant with Space Marines, maybe a second. I wouldn't even call them a close second, but maybe a second. And the game is a lot around, it is based very much around resource harassment in a way that it isn't in 2v2 and 3v3. Certainly resource harassment is important in 2v2 and 3v3, but in 1v1, I think it's basically due to the map size relative to the number of players in a 1v1 map. It's almost entirely about map resource harassment in a 1v1 for this type of game. So anyways, I strongly recommend, if you're starting the game, 2v2s and 3v3s. Preferably 3v3s are a very good way to learn. It will also help smooth out the fact that you're a newer player. As a newer player, you're going to be a little bit worse than the other players in the game, so your allies have more of an ability to carry you to victory, or rather, you think about it this way, in a two-player game, you are 50% of the impact on that game, right? In a 6-player game, you're only 1/6 the impact of the game. In other words, if you're bad, how much you're bad impacts the game is a lot less in a 3v3 game than it is in a 1v1 game. So if you like winning, and I imagine most of you like winning, one of the ways you can do that is playing 3v3s, where your allies have a chance to help you. You have a chance to learn the game a little bit without getting crushed by some meta 1v1 strategy. So I'd strongly recommend playing 3v3 or 2v2. All right, just a final note. If you're starting the game and you want to just jump in and you're like, well, fuck, there's so many doctrines, I don't want to read them all, and there's so many heroes, I don't want to read them all. How do I figure out what I want to spend my first 500 skulls on? I just want to start the game. I've listened to what you said, Filthy. Now what do I do? I think this loadout should be fine for new players. For the very, very new players, let's take a look. You won't have Suicide Bomber, so you have Kamikaze, that's fine. You'll have better repair, you won't have bigger depth shed, you'll have Tower Recall, that's fine. So if you can, purchase Zap Noggin. Grab Zap Noggin and the Storm Boys, grab the Morkanaut, well, Beauty, which is, because there's a Gorkanaut and a Morkanaut. So Beauty, I think, as you start with, Storm Boys you start with, purchase Zap Noggin, purchase these 3 doctrines, and start the game, and you should be in fighting shape to get your first couple games out, and you should be fine. These are powerful hero choices and powerful doctrine choices. There are certainly other ones, but as a starting player, these are going to do you just fine. All right, guys, hopefully this was fairly helpful. I know this is all pre-launch, but there are a couple decisions to be made pre-launch. This is actually probably the most decisions I've had to make in a game, in a real-time strategy game, before I hit the start playing button, right? You have to choose your heroes, you have to choose your doctrines, you have to understand what the hero choices are about. You have to figure out some of those things going into it. So here's how to do that. The next video, what we're going to talk about is post-launch. We'll talk about the very basics of gameplay. We'll talk about that in the next video. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please hit the follow button. And as always, I hope you're enjoying the game. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you soon.